Before you hear the rest of this, I want you to think of one sentence you said to your child recently that felt completely normal to you and somehow ended the conversation instantly. Maybe it was a question. Maybe it was advice. Maybe it was one of those phrases parents say on autopilot because their own parents said it first. Hold that sentence in your mind while you listen, because before this video ends, there is a strong chance you will realize the real damage was not in the words alone. It was in what those words made your child feel in their body. And once you understand that, you start hearing family conflict differently. Because most teens do not stop listening because they hate rules. They stop listening because too many conversations start feeling unsafe, humiliating, or pointless. A parent thinks, I am explaining. A teen feels, I am being talked down to. A parent thinks, I am correcting. A teen feels, I am being misunderstood again. A parent thinks, I am protecting. A teen feels, I am being controlled. And when that gap repeats often enough, something subtle begins to happen. The teen does not always fight louder. Sometimes they simply stop bringing their real mind into the room. They nod. They shrug. They say, okay. They say, whatever. They say, fine. They say, nothing. And parents often call that attitude hormones, disrespect, or screen addiction. But a lot of the time, it is psychological withdrawal. It is a young person discovering that certain conversations do not lead to understanding, only pressure. So instead of staying open, they go flat. Instead of explaining, they edit. Instead of staying in the exchange, they escape it emotionally while their body is still right there in front of you. That is one of the most painful things about parent-teen relationships. You can be physically close and emotionally miles apart. And many loving parents create that distance without meaning to. Not because they do not care, but because they keep using phrases that sound normal to adults and feel deeply invalidating to teenagers. The first phrase pattern that shuts teens down is authority without explanation. Because I said so. End of discussion. That's just how it is. I'm the parent. You don't need to understand, you need to listen. Now, let's be honest. Every parent gets tired. Every parent runs out of patience. Every parent has moments when they want obedience now, not a debate club tournament in the kitchen. But there is a real psychological cost to using raw authority as the main language of parenting. Because teenagers are in the exact stage of development where their brain is pushing them to question, compare, challenge, test logic, and build their own inner model of how the world works. So when they ask why, it is not always disrespect. Very often, it is development. And when the answer they get is rank instead of reasoning, the lesson they absorb is not wisdom. It is this: power matters more than meaning. The stronger person decides what reality is. Questions are dangerous. Understanding is optional. The goal is not to think. The goal is to submit. That is why this phrase creates so much invisible damage. Not because it makes a teen cry, because it teaches them not to bring their real thinking to you. The teen learns that once your authority gets activated, logic is over. And if logic is over, then honesty usually gets smaller too. They stop asking. They stop explaining. They stop testing ideas out loud in front of you. They save their real questions for friends, the internet, or the private voice in their own head. Parents think, good, I shut that down. But what they often shut down is not just the argument. They shut down access. The second phrase pattern that pushes teens away is comparison, disguised as guidance. When I was your age, other kids don't act like this. Your sister never gave me this much trouble. Why can't you be more like your brother? Kids today have it so easy. Comparison is one of the fastest ways to make a teen feel unseen. Because the moment you compare them to yourself, to a sibling, to another family, to another generation, you stop responding to the actual person in front of you. Now the conversation is not about their experience. It is about your frame, your standards, your history, your nostalgia, your frustration, your wounded expectations. And teenagers feel that instantly. They hear, "Your reality does not count unless it matches mine." They hear, "Your struggle is less valid than someone else's." They hear, "I am not talking to you anymore. I am talking to a comparison in my head." That is why so many teens explode after hearing what seems like a minor phrase. The phrase is not minor to them. It is identity pressure. Because now they are not only dealing with homework stress, social pressure, rejection, body image, exhaustion, online comparison, or whatever else is going on inside them. They are also dealing with the feeling that even at home, they are being measured against someone else's model of acceptable humanity. And when people feel measured, they rarely open up. They perform, they defend, or they shut down. The third phrase pattern is prediction instead of presence. "You'll understand when you're older. You'll thank me later. One day you'll realize I was right. When you have kids, then you'll get it." This sounds harmless. It even sounds wise. But to a teenager, this often feels like a dismissal wrapped in future tense. Because what are they really hearing? Your current perspective does not count. Your confusion is inconvenient. Your pain is not valid, yet. Your point of view can wait 10 years. That is one of the fastest ways to destroy emotional immediacy in a conversation. A teen is trying to be heard now. They are trying to make sense of something now. They are trying to feel understood now. And the parent responds with delayed validation. Maybe in the future. Maybe when you are older. Maybe when your brain is done developing. Maybe when you become me. That is not connection. That is postponement. And postponed understanding often feels like no understanding at all. The fourth phrase pattern is sarcasm pretending to be humor. "Nice attitude. Wow, what a joy to be around. Should I be scared to ask a simple question? Thanks for the little performance. You're so dramatic." Here we go again. Parents often use sarcasm because they feel powerless. They feel disrespected, overwhelmed, tired, or emotionally outmatched. So they reach for mockery, because mockery creates distance and power very quickly. But psychologically, sarcasm is poison in close relationships. Why? Because it lets the parent express contempt without taking responsibility for direct cruelty. The parent can always hide behind, "I was joking." But the teen's nervous system does not experience it as a joke. It experiences it as humiliation. And humiliation changes everything. A teen can handle a boundary. They can handle a consequence. They can even handle anger better than most parents think. What they cannot handle well is feeling small in front of someone whose love matters deeply. That is when the body goes into defense. Eyes drop. Tone changes. Walls go up. The real feeling disappears. Only armor remains. Then the parent says, "Why are you being so cold?" But the coldness is often protection from contempt. The fifth phrase pattern is the fake question. "Is that what you're wearing? Are you really going to say that? Do you actually think that's a good idea? Are you seriously this tired? Do I really need to explain this to you?" These are not questions. They are attacks dressed up as questions. And teens know it. That is what makes this pattern so corrosive. It creates the illusion of dialogue while removing the safety of dialogue. A real question invites thought. A fake question invites shame. A real question says, "Help me understand." A fake question says, "You already failed some invisible test." This is one reason teens often react so strongly to tone, because they know when words are technically polite, but emotionally loaded. They know when a question is not curiosity, but judgment with a smile on it. And once a teen expects judgment hiding inside your questions, they stop trusting questions themselves. That is where many families get stuck. The parent thinks, "I'm just asking." The teen feels, "I'm already on trial." If this is hitting close to home, leave a comment with one real-life phrase you heard from your own parents that you swore you would never repeat, and then, one day, caught yourself saying anyway. Because these phrases travel through families like inheritance, and most people do not notice until the damage is already repeating. The sixth phrase pattern is emotional minimization. It's not that serious. You're overreacting. It's just high school. You'll get over it. You're too young to be this stressed. This is not a real problem. Adults say these things because they want perspective. They want to calm the situation down. They want to protect the teen from spiraling. But the teen often hears something very different. Your experience is too inconvenient to be taken seriously. Your pain is small because I have known bigger pain. Your inner world does not deserve full emotional reality yet. And that creates profound loneliness. Because teenagers are already in one of the most emotionally intense periods of life. Everything is public. Everything is social. Everything feels permanent. Identity is unstable. Belonging feels fragile. Embarrassment feels fatal. And their brain is still learning how to regulate all of that without falling apart. So when parents minimize, teens do not suddenly become wiser. They become more alone. That is the tragedy of minimization. It does not reduce the feeling. It only removes the relationship from the feeling. Now the teen still hurts. They just stop bringing that hurt to you. The seventh phrase pattern is moralizing before understanding. You need to be grateful. Be respectful. Stop being selfish. You're acting spoiled. That's not how I raised you. You should know better. Sometimes those messages are true in part. Sometimes teens are rude. Sometimes they are entitled. Sometimes they are being incredibly annoying. But when moral language arrives too early, before you have understood the emotional state underneath the behavior, it usually does not create insight. It creates shame. And shame is one of the biggest reasons teens stop talking honestly. Because once a teen feels that one ugly moment is becoming a statement about their character, they stop trying to explain themselves. Now they are not trying to solve a conflict. They are trying to survive an identity threat. That is why a teen who feels misread often gets more defensive, not less. The issue is no longer just the behavior. The issue becomes, I am being turned into a version of myself I do not want to become in your eyes. That is a terrifying feeling for a young person. The eighth phrase pattern is using fear as communication. You're ruining your future. Keep acting like this and see what happens. This is exactly how kids end up messed up. Do you want to fail your whole life? One day, no one will tolerate this. Parents often say things like this when they are scared. Not cruel, scared. They see one behavior and imagine the whole future collapsing forward in a terrifying line. One bad grade becomes a ruined career. One social mistake becomes lifelong failure. One season of moodiness becomes permanent estrangement. One lie becomes total loss of trust forever. But when fear becomes the main language of parenting, teens stop hearing wisdom. They hear catastrophe. And catastrophe does not create closeness. It creates either panic or numbness. Some teens become more anxious. Others become emotionally flat. Some rebel harder. Some just stop letting you into their real world. because every small truth seems to explode into a prediction about their future. That is when honesty starts to feel too expensive. And this is the hidden link across all these phrases. They do not just annoy teens. They teach teens that conversation with parents can become unsafe very quickly. Unsafe for dignity, unsafe for identity, unsafe for emotional reality, unsafe for unfinished thinking, unsafe for mistakes. So the teen adapts. They stop telling the long version. They stop bringing awkward truths. They stop asking risky questions. They give efficient answers. They protect themselves from being corrected, mocked, minimized, compared, or predicted into a catastrophe. And then, one day, parents say, "My teen never talks to me anymore." But often, the deeper truth is not that the teen has nothing to say. It is that they have learned what kinds of truth your nervous system cannot hold well. That can change. But not through one perfect speech, through different patterns, through fewer phrases that shut the door, through more moments where your teen feels, maybe I can stay real here for one sentence longer than last time. And this is where most parents face the part they were never really taught to see. The phrase was never just a phrase. It was a pattern of what happens to the child's inner world when it comes into contact with the parent's stress, fear, disappointment, or need for control. That is why two parents can say nearly the same sentence and get completely different outcomes. One parent says, "We need to talk." The teen feels, "I'm in trouble." Another parent says, "We need to talk." The teen feels, "This may be hard, but I'll survive this." Same words, different nervous system experience, different relationship, different emotional history behind the sentence. That is what child psychology keeps pointing back to over and over again. Children and teens do not only respond to language, they respond to the emotional atmosphere wrapped around the language. If the atmosphere feels shaming, they hide. If it feels intrusive, they guard themselves. If it feels contemptuous, they armor up. If it feels steady, respectful, and clear, they are far more likely to stay open long enough for the truth to breathe. And that is the part many families miss for years. They keep trying to improve the words without changing the emotional climate. They search for the perfect parenting phrase, the perfect script, the perfect consequence, the perfect talk in the car, the perfect bedtime conversation. But children are not only listening for the sentence, they are listening for what the sentence does to their body. Does it make them brace? Does it make them feel cornered? Does it make them feel smaller? Does it make them feel ridiculous? Does it make them feel that one wrong answer could turn the whole room heavy? Or does it make them feel challenged without being humiliated, corrected without being reduced, seen without being exposed? That is why the real issue in parent-teen communication is often not information. It is dignity. Teens can handle a lot more truth than adults think. They can handle rules. They can handle boundaries. They can handle consequences. They can even handle anger. But when truth arrives without dignity, they start protecting themselves from the relationship itself. That protection shows up in ways parents often misread. The teen stops explaining. The teen stops asking. The teen gives smaller answers. The teen becomes lazy in conversation. The teen rolls their eyes faster. The teen says whatever, not because nothing matters, but because caring feels too risky in that moment. The teen acts like they do not need you, when often what they really do not need is another conversation that leaves them feeling emotionally flattened. And this is why some of the biggest mistakes in parenting are not the obvious ones. It is not only screaming, not only punishment, not only conflict. Sometimes the biggest damage comes from the repeated, everyday experience of feeling slightly misseen by the person whose understanding matters most. Slightly talked down to, slightly corrected, slightly mocked, slightly compared, slightly overread, slightly too managed, slightly too emotionally expensive to be real around. One moment like that may not change much, but repetition does. Repetition becomes expectation. Expectation becomes self-protection. And self-protection becomes distance. That is how families grow apart while still living under the same roof. And once that pattern is there, many parents panic. They try harder, talk more, explain more, monitor more, correct more, push more. But when a teen is already protecting themselves, more pressure almost never creates more honesty. It creates more performance, a better answer, a safer version, a polished explanation, half the truth, a flat voice, a fast exit. Then the parent thinks, I am losing my child. And the teen thinks, I am losing the feeling that I can be fully myself here. That is the real crisis. Not just disobedience, not just attitude, not just distance. The feeling that home is becoming a place where the real self has to be edited. And if you want to change that, the work is deeper than better wording. It is better presence, a slower presence, a steadier presence, a presence that does not have to win the moment. A presence that does not turn every hard truth into a referendum on the child's whole character. A presence that can separate behavior from identity. A presence that can say, this is not okay, without also saying, you are becoming someone terrible. That is what builds trust. Because trust is not only built when everything goes well. Trust is built when the child is wrong, messy, embarrassed, reactive, rude, ashamed, or confused, and still discovers that the parent can lead without humiliating. That is extraordinary and rare. It sounds like this. I'm not ignoring what you did, but I'm not going to make this bigger than it needs to be. I want the truth, and I want to hear it without turning this into a disaster. You're allowed to feel what you feel. You're not allowed to treat people badly. We're dealing with this, but I'm not interested in crushing you. You do not need to become smaller for me to parent you. That kind of language changes the whole emotional logic of a family. Because now the teen learns something new. Authority does not have to feel like domination. Correction does not have to feel like contempt. Conflict does not have to mean emotional exile. And honesty does not always have to cost so much. That lesson becomes part of them. It becomes part of how they handle friendship, how they handle intimacy, how they handle future bosses, partners, mistakes, and conversations where something real is at stake. This is why everyday family communication matters so much more than people think. It is not just about getting through dinner. It is not just about getting homework done. It is not just about attitude in the car. It is about the emotional template your child is building for what close relationships feel like when things get hard. Do close relationships feel shaming? Do they feel controlling? Do they feel unpredictable? Do they feel like one mistake can become a full identity crisis? Or do they feel like places where truth, boundaries, and dignity can all exist in the same room? That template begins at home. And yes, parents get triggered too. That matters, because a lot of what sounds like wisdom in the moment is actually fear speaking through authority. Fear that your child will fail. Fear that they will get hurt. Fear that they will become reckless. Fear that they will reject your values. Fear that one season of distance means the relationship is slipping away. Fear that if you do not control this moment now, you will lose influence later. Fear is human. But when fear is not understood, it often becomes tone, sharpness, catastrophe, prediction, moralizing, pressure. And when pressure becomes the main thing a teen feels from you, they stop hearing love clearly, even if love is fully there. That is why self-awareness is such a powerful parenting skill. To notice, I am reacting to my fear, not just to my child. I am trying to win control instead of create connection. I am speaking from urgency, not from clarity. I am about to turn a hard moment into a damaging one. That pause matters. Because inside that pause is choice. Choice to ask one less loaded question. Choice to stop before sarcasm. Choice to correct behavior without attacking identity. Choice to let the room breathe. Choice to remember that a dysregulated teen does not need more emotional force. They need more grounded leadership. And grounded leadership is one of the greatest gifts a parent can offer. Not weak, not permissive, not vague. Grounded. Clear enough to hold the line. Steady enough not to humiliate. Strong enough not to personalize every mood. Wise enough to know that a teen's bad tone is not always the real issue. Sometimes, the tone is the armor around fear, shame, embarrassment, or the desperate wish not to be misunderstood one more time. And when parents can see that, really see it, they stop fighting only the surface. They stop asking only, how do I shut this down? They start asking, what is happening underneath this that I need to lead well? That question changes everything. Because underneath disrespect may be shame. Underneath withdrawal may be overload. Underneath eye-rolling may be powerlessness. Underneath sarcasm may be humiliation. Underneath silence may be the fear that honesty will be mishandled the second it appears. That does not excuse bad behavior, but it tells you what kind of response has a chance of working. If the deeper issue is shame, more shame will not fix it. If the deeper issue is fear, more fear will not fix it. If the deeper issue is not feeling understood, more lectures will not fix it. This is why so many parent-teen conversations feel stuck. The parent is responding to the top layer. The teen is reacting from the layer underneath, and neither person feels fully met. That is also why repair matters so much. Because no parent gets this right all the time. You will say the wrong thing. You will sound harsher than you meant to. You will ask too many questions. You will minimize something you should have stayed with. You will get scared and call it guidance. You will get hurt and call it discipline. That will happen. The danger is not imperfection. The danger is leaving the imperfection unrepaired. When a parent gets it wrong and then doubles down, the teen learns something painful. They learn that the parent's ego matters more than the truth of the moment. That the adult can judge, but cannot be accountable. That authority can speak down, but never self-reflect. But when a parent comes back and repairs, the whole relationship shifts. I made that harder than I needed to. I came in too strong. I started correcting before I understood what was really going on. I let my frustration become sarcasm. I still need to hold the boundary, but I want to do it without making you feel small. You did not deserve that tone. That kind of repair builds more trust than many parents realize. Because now the teen learns something rare. Power and humility can live in the same person. A strong parent can also be emotionally accountable. Conflict does not have to erase respect. Love does not disappear when the conversation gets hard. That lesson is huge. And if this video is helping you see your relationship with your child more clearly, subscribe to the channel and share this with one person who truly cares about parenting, child psychology, and what really happens inside family communication. Not because anyone needs another perfect parenting performance, but because a lot of good parents are damaging trust with phrases they never meant to make painful. Because once you understand what those phrases really do, you cannot unhear them. You start noticing when "I'm just saying" is actually pressure, when "I'm joking" is actually contempt, when "I'm helping" is actually control, when "you'll understand later" is actually dismissal, when "why are you so sensitive" is really a refusal to hold the impact of your own tone. And that awareness is powerful, because now you can do something different. You can slow the first reaction. You can remove the mockery. You can ask real questions instead of fake ones. You can stop comparing. You can stop predicting catastrophe. You can validate the feeling before you try to shape the behavior. You can protect the teen's dignity even when you are correcting them. That is how trust returns. Not in one speech, not in one apology, not in one magical weekend where everyone sits in a circle and becomes emotionally fluent for the rest of their lives. It returns in patterns. Smaller, steadier, safer patterns. A teen tries one more honest sentence. You do not punish the honesty with a giant reaction. They try again later. You stay calmer. They bring a little more truth. You stay respectful. They test whether your presence is becoming safer. You keep showing them that it is. And slowly, the walls start losing some of their job. Not because the teen becomes easy, not because adolescence stops being adolescence, but because the relationship starts feeling less dangerous to be real inside. That is the goal. Not a teen who tells you everything. Not a family with no conflict. Not perfect communication. Not constant peace. The real goal is much deeper. When your teen is embarrassed, overwhelmed, angry, ashamed, or confused, does your presence make honesty more possible or less possible? That question can change the entire future of a relationship. Because teens do not remember every rule. They do not remember every speech. They do not remember every perfect point you tried to make. But they do remember how their body felt around you when they were vulnerable. Did they feel judged? Did they feel small? Did they feel handled? Did they feel mocked? Did they feel like a disappointment? Or did they feel that even in conflict, even in correction, even when they got it wrong, their dignity was still alive in the room? That memory becomes part of them. And one day, without even noticing it at first, they will carry that emotional memory into adult relationships, into trust, into love, into friendship, into work, into the way they talk to themselves when they fail, into the way they may someday talk to their own children. That is why this matters so much. A normal sentence can become a pattern. A pattern can become an atmosphere. An atmosphere can become a child's emotional blueprint. So the next time you feel the urge to say the easy phrase, the inherited phrase, the tired phrase, the sarcastic phrase, the phrase that wins the moment but loses the person, pause and ask yourself something better. Will these words build truth here or make truth hide? Because in the end, that is what parenting is often deciding. Not just what behavior you allow, but what kind of relationship your child has to enter when they need to bring you something real. And if you can make that relationship steadier, safer, and less humiliating, then you give your child something far more powerful than perfect advice. You give them a place where being honest, does not feel like emotional self-destruction. And that may be one of the greatest gifts a parent can ever give.